You don't mind? Don't mind. Okay, it's okay. All right, go and sit down. You can go and talk with Shayla. You know, this is such a simple little thing that you can do every day with your child. And, you know, it's going to start meaningful conversations, and it's going to make Jesus relevant and real to them every day. Okay? And what a powerful thing to be blessed by your child for a parent. So in Treasure Hunters, we're getting kids to connect with other kids in this way and teach it to them. Now, on that resource table out there, we've got a little A5 flyer that tells you how to, if you've forgotten. And we've also got a fridge magnet, so you can just pop it on your fridge. So there's just one per family. So head out there later. And for those little books and things, I hear they've actually got FPOS. It could be the first time it's come to our church.
Great, thanks, Sheena. Great. Grab a little magnet for your fridge afterwards, and I encourage you to do this with your kids. Do high fives. I'll mention it a little bit later as I preach through. I want this morning to pick up on this, what we've been talking about again, and I want to talk about what would be 3 values that you want to establish in your family. 3 values that you want to put into practice. First value that I've got down here is we want our children to know and experience the love of God in our homes. And I'm sure that all of us want that to happen. I guess the big question is, how do you make it happen? And the first thing I've got down here is that the first thing that if you want to establish the love of God in your home so that your kids know that the love of God's in your home, the first thing is really important is that all of us need to have a faith and a love for God that's real and personal. It needs to be something that is real for you and is worked out in your everyday life, not just something you do when you come here on Sundays to church and you put on your religious face or whatever. You know, it's got to be something that is worked out in your everyday life. And as your kids see your love for Jesus and that it's real, you become an incredible model for them, and they just will want to follow your love for God because they see it's real. It's amazing the power of modelling. Sometimes you don't have to do a lot of talking, you just live it, and your kids will want to live it as well because they see that it's so real and personal for you. And the big question this morning is, if you think about this, is your faith and your love for God real and personal so that your kids can see it? Now, I think at church here, many of you, your faith is very real and personal, but we always get people who are coming who are exploring who God is. And some of you will be here this morning and you're kind of saying, well, actually, I believe in God, but I'm not so sure about it being so personal or real. And how does it become personal and real? Well, I think for everybody here, at some stage in their life, you come to the point where you recognise that while you might have a belief in God, He's kind of out there somewhere. You know, He's not in your space. And for God to become part of your space, and for you to know God personally, you actually have to invite Him into your space. And that's where we come to the point in our lives where we realise that Jesus, when He died on the cross, just didn't do it as a religious thing. He actually did it for me. And I need to invite Him into my life, and I need to surrender to Him and say, Jesus, I want you to be my Saviour, but I also want you to be the Lord of my life. And when we come to that point of getting on our knees and saying, Jesus, that's what I want. I need you in here, and I want to ask you to be my Saviour. And when you do that, what does Jesus do? He touches our hearts, doesn't He? There's a lady here this morning, and she won't mind me saying this. came to the Lord a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And you know what happens when you come to know Jesus and you come to church? What happens? You cry every Sunday, don't you? For a few weeks. You know why you do that? Because it's like God's opened your heart and you're starting to experience the love of God in your heart. And for some of you this morning, if you're on this journey of discovering who God is, I want to encourage you afterwards to come and have a talk to me, because I would love to pray with you and show you how you can ask Jesus into your life. Because if your faith's going to be real and personal and you're going to show it to your kids and live it out in front of your kids, you have to take the step, first of all, of knowing Jesus in your life and knowing him to be real. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if we're to pass on our faith to our children, we need to take time to build close relationships with our kids. Because it's as we build close connectedness with our kids and we build these close relationships, then it gives us that freedom to talk to our kids and to teach our kids about Jesus. There's a guy, George Barna, who's an American who does a lot of research. He's found that fewer than 10% of parents who regularly attend church have any faith conversations or read the Bible or pray or take part in some form of service with their children. In other words, living out our faith in our homes amongst church attenders is almost non-existent. Now that's a pretty sad statistic when you think about how important it is as parents that we live out our faith and we talk to our kids about Jesus. Only 10%. This is in America, but I'm not sure that we're much different than America. But that is a sad statistic. I think that most of us struggle with this. How do you live out your faith in front of your kids? But it's something that we want to encourage you to work on and build into your family life. And it starts with you building those close relationships with your kids. And in Deuteronomy 6 here, God gives us some ideas about how to do this. Verse 7, he says, talk to them when you sit at home. Now, when do you sit at home as families and sit down and talk together? Interesting question, isn't it? When do you do this as families? Now, traditionally, we normally do this at our evening meal. We're all together, we sit down, and we have an evening meal together. Any families do that? You know, you sit down and you talk about the day. But the problem is today, more and more families are not doing that. Why? Because we have TV meals. Our youngest daughter, when she went to university, she got bored with a Christian family. But the problem was, they never sat down and talked together. Why? Because at the evening meal, they all came and dished up their food and they sat down in front of the TV with their meal on their plate, and they never had time as a family where they were together and they talked together about their day. It was non-existent in that family. How can you build family relationships if you don't have times when you're a family together and you build that, talk together about the day, or you actually pray together as a family, if it's non-existent, if you don't have time together? Now, I think for many of us, I'm amazed at how you can live in a family and grow up in a family and not feel that you've actually built really close relationships with mum and dad or the rest of the family. And yet, many of you grew up in families where that closeness, that intimacy of relationship wasn't there. Some of you grew up feeling isolated and lonely and rejected in your own family. And one of the things that we all value is that we want to get close to our kids and have those times where there's a real sense of intimacy and closeness with our kids. But in our hectic world today, it's very easy for that to slide out the door because we're all busy with doing all the other important things. And so we sometimes